everybody. Welcome once again to the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast right here on the Wrestlecopia Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and please welcome me and joining my co-host, Josh Slammer Briley, Richard Jammer Mulligan, the brute force behind P3 Radio. Guys, how are we doing this morning?
Awesome, Gene. How about you, man?
I'm doing well, man. I know this drops on Wednesday, Wrestlecopia and everywhere everybody gets their podcasts, as they say. But, in reality, we've pointed out before, we're usually recording these on Sunday morning. So I have to ask you guys, being a Sunday morning, and we're just a couple days away, how was your Valentine's Day?
I needed some Gatorade, son. I'll tell you what, it was a success, Gene. Big success. I had fun, man.
Gatorade and Gold Bond, huh? That's what got you through the weekend.
Some of that shit your grandma used to call salve. Put some salve on it.
Man, he couldn't even put on pants. It was so bad. No, I've been married almost 20 years. We don't celebrate that shit anymore.
Yeah, we went out Thursday night because we wanted to beat the crowd for Friday. So that's where we're at in our.
We ordered food, like from DoorDash here. And it got here 2.5 hours later. The guy called us. He's like, they're an hour behind in the kitchen.
Friday night, at some point on Friday night during Valentine's, me and Richard were texting back and forth, something wrestling related. I'm sure it had something to do with the podcast or something. And, It was just me and him. It was just me and him going back and forth. Richard's like, yeah, Josh will respond later. I'm sure his wife's knuckled. Oh, we won't finish that. But anyway, by the way it sounds, I think you nailed that one, Richard. I think you're spot on with
that. Someone got a hemorrhoid surgery and has got a new butthole to play around with.
So if you're listening to this when the show drops, we hope everybody had a great President's Day on Monday. I had to work, so mine wasn't great. I don't know how yours were. I'm sure. Richard, you're probably off, right?
Yeah, his is publicly funded for sure. I got to work just like you, Gene.
Oh, that sucks, man.
So, yeah, you enjoy your knuckle when you're off on Monday there, Bile, but we had to work. But don't forget, folks, this Friday night, if you're listening to this as it drops at 7 p.m., join us for our live stream watch along of the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view. And folks, if you haven't never seen this, you are in for a treat. There's bad wrestling pay-per-views, and then there's Heroes of Wrestling. It's a whole different level. All right, guys?
Define treat, right? Will the treat be like experiencing it with us? That'd be the treat and all.
Yeah, that's the treat is if you'll get in the comments, watch along with us. Give us your thoughts. Let us know what you think about it. Because to me, there's levels of bad wrestling. Like there's some wrestling that's so bad that it's fun. It almost becomes good on a different level for like the comedy aspects of it. Now, some wrestling's just bad, and it's not even fun. It's just bad. It's just shitty. You just don't want to see it. Heroes of Wrestling walks that fine line at different points in the pay-per-view of like, oh man, this is funny, to how the fuck are we watching? Like, why are we doing this? So fair warning, and I guess, to kind of ease you guys' mind here. I'm saying Josh and Richard as well as the listeners. I clipped this thing down. What was normal, I think originally was like a 3.5 hour pay-per-view is down to just over 90 minutes. I cut most of the promos. I cut most of the entrances, unless there was something funny happen. They dropped a couple of whole matches that they weren't even fun. They were just there. So it's about 90 minutes. It's streamlined to the good stuff, but all the Jake Roberts shenanigans in the end are intact. And that's definitely a promo I had to leave in, as you can imagine. Yeah. Want to play 21? I've got 2 of them. Like, what the fuck does that mean?
The thing about that was Richard watched that pay-per-view, I think, as it happened, or he got a copy.
I got a copy
very soon after, and he watched it, and he called me on the phone, and he like almost verbatimed it. And I told you are full of shit. That did not happen. You are making this shit up. You're ribbing me. well, come over and I'll fucking show it to you. And I came over and I was like, oh my fucking God, this is gold. And I can't wait to experience that gold. Friday night, baby. Friday night.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun with this, and you know, we were doing our last live watch along, and somehow in the midst of that, this idea came up as we were watching along, and man, the last one was great. I hope we have the same luck this time. We had a lot of listeners and viewers of the podcast that joined us, and they were commenting and they were making some fun, so pretty fun thoughts and different points of view, and adding some information about, like, there was somebody on the screen and we didn't realize who it was, and boom, there they were. Somebody had the answer. Somebody had, you know, so it was a lot of fun. I hope we can do that again this Friday night. I hope everybody joins us and we have a good time with it. Because no, we're not saying it's a good pay-per-view, but it's going to be a fun pay-per-view, and especially if you guys join us and give us your thoughts on this thing. And if you haven't never seen it before, you're in for a treat. And if you have, then you know we're going to have a lot of fun. If you see the fun that we have with some of the things that happen here on USWA, you know we're going to have fun with some of that. So make sure you join us. And guys, I had a little fun as I was introducing you, and I mentioned brute force, and we talked about it at the end of last week's show how we had better have all the fun we could with brute force because they were going to be a one and done. They were in and they were out. Well, I guess we're going to have a little more fun with them because I guess they got wind of the show last week. I don't know if somebody sent it to them. I don't know if they're regular listeners, viewers of the show, but we got another voicemail. Check this out.
Yeah, this is Slammer from the greatest heavy metal tag team in wrestling history. And I know you guys from the Retro Rewind Review, or Retro Wrestling Rewind Review radio show. You do some kind of show and you were critiquing us over shit. Huh? I expect you guys to be gentlemen and just edit this part out, okay? We're gonna rewind this. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Hey, this is Jammer from the greatest heavy metal tag team in wrestling history. And I just want to say, you guys just need to let up on your critiques. And really, you don't know what it's like to be having the burden of being the greatest heavy metal tag team and having to restrict your roles and just be wrestlers. It freaking sucks. You don't know what it's like. Anyways, you guys need to watch your freaking mouths.
Wow.
Did he not say this is Slammer at the beginning? And I think when he started over, he said it was Jammer. So even those guys can't keep up with who's who. I don't feel so bad now.
Maybe he passed the phone.
Could be. It could have been the other one. I'm sure they stick pretty close most of the time, it seems, anyway.
What's the name of that song?
Apparently, near middle schools is where they
Teenage Lover.
Yikes! Ugh. I tried to Google that song just to get lyrics, and buddy, you talk about algorithms now, but nothing popped up. I can't find the lyrics at all. I tried hard.
I tell you what,
you enjoy Lawler. You enjoy matches though, right? So I mean, that had to be.
I tell you what's going to pop up: the FBI at your house.
Exactly.
So yeah. What's your favorite tag team again?
Was that?
Like, no, man, it's a song. They're like, yeah, that's what they all say is they're dragging you off in cuffs. That's what the Master of Terror told us, pal.
What was the there was a comedian this week that I was watching said he found out there was a Kid Rock sex tape. He typed in sex tape kid and he's like, oh shit.
Why would you want to see it anyway?
Yeah.
On that note, let's head back to September 4th, 1993 for some more USWA Championship Wrestling, as Corey Maclin let us know right out of the gate that Dave Brown had the day off, so it was going to be an all Corey Maclin episode this week, and I'm not even mad about it, guys. I don't think we've been getting enough Corey Maclin in our episodes recently, so I'm pretty fired up about it. Sure, Richard is too. Perhaps Dave needed a week off after what he saw last week, guys. Do you remember what Dave caught a glimpse of? If not, Dave, could you remind us what we got a glimpse of last week?
Oh, we got a glimpse of the black pussy. Well, we got
My goodness, Dave. I mean,
a glimpse of the black pussy.
all right. Well, yeah. So Dave had to have a week off after that, and maybe he needs to. We don't even talk like that here on the show. But Corey lets us know.
He wasn't talking about TD Steele either. There, Gene.
Not this time, anyway. I'm sure he referred to him as that more than once. But Corey lets us know that we'll be seeing Mike Anthony, who debuted last week. We'll be seeing the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett, in there. And all the usual suspects will be here. Plus, we're going to see the 8 feet tall giant Gonzalez. He's actually going to be in the studio, guys. He's actually going to be wrestling in the TV5 studio. And so, I don't know. That's kind of exciting to hear. I'm trying to picture, him not hitting his head on the freaking lights above the ring. So we'll see how that turns out for us. So let's get right into it. We returned from the opening break with Corey in front of the green screen with Giant Gonzalez's handsome mug up there, and it says a gigantic grudge. And we cut to highlights from the end of the cage match from last week that we discussed on last week's show. Owen's trying to climb the cage. Jeff comes out, he cuts him off. The Giant shows up. We can only assume at this point in the proceedings that the Giant is here to help Lawler. But wait a minute, Gonzalez makes it in the cage. He high-fives Bret Hart and then swings a big clubbing punch at Lawler that missed by several inches. I don't know if you can tell from that blurry picture there, but that's as close as he got to Lawler's face is that picture right there. And after swinging that big punch, I guess the wind off of it knocked Lawler down because he went down nonetheless. He proceeds to hit Lawler with some of the just awfulest looking punches and kicks that I've ever seen in a wrestling match in my life. The only thing worse than Giant Gonzalez's offense is his airbrushed bodysuit. I mean, in the history of anything that require, I'm not just talking about wrestling, guys. I'm talking about anything in life that required a costume. Has anything ever been worse than the naked bodysuit with no genitalia of the Giant Gonzalez? I mean, I'm sure it seemed like a good idea in theory, and the concept art, it probably looked really cool. But holy shit, once you saw him on camera once, how did you ever let him go out in public like that again?
Yeah, it was like a weird Ken doll look, It's like, with Vince being the way he is, there had to have been a suit that had a genitalia painted on it and everything else. And they probably made him wear it around a few times. It's going to look great on TV, pal. And he's like nervous about wearing it. But yeah, no, I was always an Elegante fan. You know what I mean? Like, not a fan. Don't get me wrong.
I'll take phrases I've never heard in my life for 200, Alex.
I was always a bigger Elegante fan than Giant Gonzalez. Let me say that because I thought the look was better presented. You know what I mean? Like, and it looked like he was more mobile in WCW. You know what I mean? Like he got to WWF and it's like he stiffened up.
You would think 10 years had passed between when he was in WCW and when he showed up in WWF due to his mobility and some of the weight that he had put on.
Yeah.
But honestly, if he was going to wear a bodysuit, I think I think the internal organs like old Slim Goodbody back in the day on PBS would have been a better look than the hairy. I mean, Bastion Booger had better gear than John Gonzalez, let's be honest. But anyway, Brett holds Lawler, and Gonzalez goes to clothesline Lawler, but Lawler ducks, and Gonzalez clotheslines Brett by mistakes. Gonzalez then grabs his temple and staggers around like he ate a popsicle too fast, which allowed Lawler to get the pin. Now, Josh, your uncle is a famous wrestler, world-renowned wrestling trainer. Richard, you allegedly at some point in your life liked wrestling. Have you guys ever once, just one time, saw it work out where somebody held somebody in place for a clothesline and that didn't get them to themselves clothesline. I mean, the physics of that doesn't even make sense, that you're going to hold somebody in place and then they're going to clothesline the guy. I mean, there's only one way for that to work out, and it works out that way every single time. But
I thought you were going to
even the
bring
excellence
up
of execution slips up, I guess.
you said eating a popsicle too fast. Thought you bringing up the fact that Uncle Danny cannot get brain freezes. I've told you that, right? I know I've told
No.
Richard that before, but
No, I
yeah,
haven't heard this.
he's got this weird fucking thing. Like, he's never had a brain freeze, and like, I'm sitting at a restaurant with him, and I think it was Jeffersonville, and he's talking about it, and he's drinking a milkshake, and he's like, "Watch!" And he drinks the motherfucker like as quick as I've ever seen anybody drink a milkshake. He just stared at me. He's like, "See, I'm fine." I was like, "Holy shit!"
The weirdest super talent ever.
You're kidding.
Maybe he get brain freezes every once in a while. He'd win a match. He's ill-equipped.
Man.
He's ill-equipped for brain freezes.
Yeah, it's something weird with his senses or something, because also like food is not hot enough for him. Like, yeah, it's weird. Like, he said he went to Mexico and tore that shit up. He's like, it wasn't even hot enough. It's like, well, that's strange.
It's like a damn boat.
Somebody's like, "What is your superpower?" Like, I don't get brain freezes. They're like,
Well, he gets body freezes when he's
I
laying
don't
on his
feel
back.
enough. That's what it is. I just don't feel enough.
Like a damn boat. You just throw a blanket over him. He think it's nighttime and lay down.
So afterwards, Brett, Owen, and the Giant, they beat up Lawler. Jarrett tries to come in and help. They beat up Jarrett as well. So Lawler wins the battle but loses the war, as they say, I guess. But he's still the champion. So we'll hear more about that later on. But match number 1, Mike Anthony, who we saw debut last week by kissing both of Brian Christopher's ladies at ringside, is here to take on Intruder number 2. Now, don't get this one confused with Intruder number 1. This is Intruder number 2. As the match is about to begin, Paul Neighbors goes into the ring wearing a freaking neck brace, attempting to referee the match. Eddie Marlin comes out and tells him he can't referee because he's injured. Neighbors argues that he can referee when he's got a neck brace on. And he says that Eddie Marlin can't fire him, but he's trying to starve him to death by not letting him referee. And Marlin agrees that he can't fire Paul Neighbors. But then he says the USWA board has approved to let him go, so he is firing Paul Neighbors. I'm confused. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I mostly just have an issue with the fact that a referee, or in this case, a referee, as Paul Neighbors would say, could take 7 pile drivers from Jerry Lawler and only be out for a week before he returns in a neck brace. I mean, Andy Kaufman took 2. He was in the hospital for a week, wore a neck brace for like 2 freaking years, it seemed like. And here's Paul Neighbors out here after only missing 1 TV episode. What do you guys think about that?
Well, and also Brian sold the fireball to the face for like what, a month and a half with that tape and stuff. It's like Paul Neighbors was invincible. It's like he comes in and he's just wearing a neck brace. Everybody forgot. I mean, and that was a horrific fireball they threw on him too, because all he could do is just sit there and take it because he was strapped down.
Everybody else grabs their head and everything. His arms are strapped down the side of him. He just had to, like he was having a seizure.
Yeah, so I mean, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, why is he out here this early? You know.
So keep in mind a couple of things about what we just heard, that they're trying to starve him to death, and he's got to get out here and referee so he can make some money. By God, he can't just sit at home and sell his neck. But anyway, back to the match. Mike Anthony scores a win over the Intruder with a big super fly splash. Anthony's continuing to look impressive in the ring. Like I say, there's claim he's from Washington, but from everything I see, he's from Canada. I don't know why we're not talking about that, but okay.
Visa situations.
Perhaps that's a good point. So we take a break and return to Bert Prentice and the Giant Gonzalez are out here to cut a promo. And it's weird because when I first seen him on the screen, I thought it was the green screen. And I'm like, no, that's actually freaking Giant Gonzalez standing behind Bert Prentice. Like, I don't know. It was strange. Like, there's a few people we've talked about in the past. It was kind of surreal to see them in the studio, and Giant Gonzalez is another one of those people. I mean, he's so friggin' big. I mean, I don't know that he's exactly 8 feet tall, but by God, he's pretty damn close, right? I mean, look at him right there behind Corey and Bert. I mean, that's quite the picture right there of he's almost taller than the screen up there. Now, we mentioned earlier, I forgot I had this illustration I should have shown, but there's a good look at the lack thereof of Giant Gonzalez. Somebody thought this was a good idea to send this poor man out on television with that on.
Well, I mean, it's either do that or, not do it at all, probably was the choice.
Well, I mean, let him wear some trunks over that, or airbrush him some trunks on.
Before the end, didn't he get the full fur bottom?
Oh, he had a bush. Yeah, he had a literal bush after they decided they painted on hair didn't look good. So he eventually had a bodysuit where all of the airbrushed hair was actual hair. Yeah, I don't think that was better. I don't think that was better at all.
How many women in America this past Valentine's Day saw that late at night? Just a shorter version,
Yeah, that was quite the look. So Bert says that fall is in the air, and it's the fall of Jerry the Queen Lawler. And Bert calling someone queen will never not be funny to me. I'm sorry, it just is. But pretty good promo there by Bert. We're not going to bother watching it because, again, I'm not going to show a lot of clips because this is another episode where the video quality leaves a lot to be desired. So these clips kind of look and sound a little rough when we show them. But having said that, the uniqueness of seeing a quote unquote 8 foot tall giant in the ring here on TV5, we are going to take a look at a little bit of this match between the Giant Gonzalez and Sam Norris. And then we'll hear a little bit of a promo on the other side of it. And check this out.
All right, here we go. USWA action. Sam Norris is the opponent for the 8 foot tall Giant Gonzalez. Gonzalez going against Sam Norris. And boy, it's a tough day for Norris here already today on USWA Wrestling. I'm sure when he found out he had to go against the Giant Gonzalez, that boy, Norris probably wanted to turn around and go back home. We'll ring the bell for this one. Underway with Giant Gonzalez and Sam Norris. Standing in at 8 feet tall, Giant Gonzalez is in the USWA, and the big giant managed by Bert Prentice. Boy, weighs over 400 pounds and stands in at 8 feet tall.
You know, Corey, Jerry Lawler's going around telling everybody, and people are writing that Vince McMahon is behind the giant, trying to get Lawler out of the wrestling business. Vince McMahon don't care about this. Jerry Lawler has some big problems in life. Everybody hates his guts.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. There's not too many people that just exactly care for you either, Bert Prentice. Matter of fact, I'm one of them. Giant Gonzalez and Sam Norris here today on USWA Wrestling, and the big giant works over Norris. Uh-oh. Got Norris by the throat there, the Giant Gonzalez. Slams him down to the mat. 1, 2, that's gonna be it. Sam Norris won't wake up from that one as the 8 foot tall Giant Gonzalez gets the win over Sam Norris, and it did not take long either, not long at all. And Giant Gonzalez comes away with the win, a quick one over Sam Norris, and he and Bert Prentice will finally get out of here. Here comes Paul Neighbors out.
Eddie Murphy came out here early and fired him as the referee.
Yeah, he did.
Well, that's okay.
So that means he doesn't have any business out of here. So get him out of here, Bert.
Mr. Neighbors just came to me, and he wants to buy an interest in my Giant. He's got $10,000 cash. And I said, Paul, I have admired Paul because he's been the greatest referee to ever step foot in a USWA ring. Paul, why just do that? spread your money around. I'll take $10,000 as a down payment, and he can have an interest in all of my top stars.
A down payment? What is the balance, Paul?
So what we do here,
in all of them, right?
right, in the dog,
balance
and the dog catcher, and every top star I bring in here. $10,000 down payment. We'll work payments out, okay? Okay? We deal? You are part of my corporation.
Okay, so Paul Neighbors is trying to come out and ref the first match because they're trying to starve him to death. He's going broke, but now he's got $10,000 to throw around to become Bert Prentice's assistant manager, I guess you'd almost call it here. The funniest thing to me out of that and everything we just saw in that entire clip is Bert putting his hand directly onto Corey's mouth as Corey goes, "What's the balance?" He literally sounded like that as Bert put his hand over his mouth. Like, "Hey, don't touch me. I don't know where that hand's been, but I got a pretty good idea." I'm sure there was a penis involved somewhere.
Definitely. I thought it was hilarious that they had to get Bill Alfonso out there. I mean, because he was out there to lead the match. That he was trying to tell them guys what to do, and it looked so clunky. Even so, like even he couldn't save it.
Yeah.
I don't know why they wouldn't put. I told Richard while we were watching, I was like, man, they should have got Tony Williams out here. That would have been a great visual. The super short, small guy versus the super big guy. And Tony's smart enough. He could have led that fucking match and probably got a great match out of it. But instead they put I don't even remember the guy's name.
Sam Norris.
Yeah.
It was just like, I mean, because Tony would have bumped and made Giant Gonzalez look good, but this guy barely got off the mat for this choke slam, and I mean, made every bit of it look like crap. Like Tony Williams made him look like a freaking $1 million. I totally agree with that. That's a great assessment.
We can say what we want to about Mr. Norris. I don't know if y'all noticed this. He technically won that match. John Gonzalez had him in a chokehold in the corner, and Alfonso went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, like he counted to 5.
Come on, go to choke, Daddy. Let's go to Daddy.
You can see in the video, it looked like Bill Alfonso kind of freaked out a little bit. Like, hey, I'm gonna have to disqualify you.
I'm gonna ring that bell, Daddy.
So Bill Alfonso was his handler, basically, and he traveled with him, and then they said he was his interpreter. I'm like, Bill Alfonso could barely speak English. You mean to tell me he spoke Spanish too? Like, okay. And and eventually Bruno kind of fell into that role as well. But at this point, Alfonso was mostly responsible for him. Kind of the way Dusty Wolf had to run the roads with Zeus back in '89. So the stories he tells in his book. But yeah, I just think they could have picked just about anybody to wrestle Giant Gonzalez that could have made him look better than this guy. And I'm always still amazed that Bill Alfonso eventually transitions from being a referee to a manager because like his promos with "Let me tell you something, Sabu. Dad's gonna break your neck." Like he could barely talk, much less. But I mean, I guess it was decent heat, because people hated his ass. And
And that fucking whistle. Oh,
you give anybody a whistle and they'll get heat. Just ask spoiler BT. But anyway, moving on to match number 3. Now, apparently, I don't think that Paul Neighbors has handed over the $10,000 cash, but apparently this deal is effective immediately because in the very next match, coming directly out of the segment we just saw, Paul Neighbors is managing the dog catchers at ringside. So clearly this was an instantaneous deal, and who can blame Bert for trying to distance himself from these freaking dog catchers? So I'd have been like, yeah, here you go. You can have the champs, Paul. Have at it. But did you guys notice in this match that apparently, their matches are under dog catcher rules or some such, because while they didn't use weapons, I don't think they ever got out. I think they were both in the ring for the entire match. Like, I don't think there was a single tag made. Like, both dudes were just in the ring for the whole match. They really didn't do anything dangerous. They didn't hit him with chairs or nothing, but they just stayed in the ring the entire time until they hit him with the old, I think the Midnight Express used to call it move, the flapjack, where they drop them on their face and then pin them. And then the dog catchers, they're victorious. That's our champions, guys. That's who is the best tag team in the USWA today.
From that pick, it looked like 4 referees.
Yeah.
was in there.
And here's my question. Is this another set of dog catchers? Because the body type, like the diet that they must be on to change their body type so much in like 4 weeks.
And skin tones in certain cases.
Now look at these guys. All right. You can't see much about those masks and everything there. But look at the they put up for the graphic for the mask.
Right.
Guys, not even close.
Yeah. I mean, and I could be wrong, but what were the 2 guys that were on the show that was under masks? The 2 guys that were kind of like jobbers? The intruders. I got intruder vibes from these dog catchers.
I feel like if Bert would have been the promoter at this time, there would have been a raffle intermission. If you win the raffle, you can be one of the dog catchers of the main event. You'll be tag team champion. And if you do good, we'll book you again next week.
You just gotta hope Eddie Marlin makes it with the masks.
Bring your own BYOM. Bring your own mask. And
Bert would be selling some cheap mask at the intermission too. Buy a mask, and then you get to qualify to be a dog catcher.
You buy a mask to qualify to enter the drawing. To be a dog catcher. And then if you pay an extra bonus, you'll go over in your match too. But yeah, that just caught my eye. Like seeing these guys in the ring, like I say, like the ref world order right there. And then I popped this up a little bit later. I'm like, that's not even close to the same 2 guys, and it sure as hell ain't the 2 guys that popped up the first week.
No,
I would have thought that they were the intruders if they weren't on camera at the same time as the intruders who were wrestling the Moondogs. But
sadly, it's reaffirming the notion that we suspected, months and months ago at this point. I don't think they think people are noticing shit, and we do. Like they truly believe, nobody gives a fuck. But yeah, people like us do give a fuck, or at least then too.
All I can think of when I see those guys wrestling though is, man, PG-13 pissed some people off, didn't they? To be as good as PG-13 is, and they're pushing the dog catchers down our throats. It's like, geez, you got an over tag team that they could be printing money with, and they're stuck on like undercards and first shot of Monday night. It's like, man, they pissed somebody off.
But back then, still, I mean, I know Dundee and like others, Kevin Sullivan are kind of an exception to the issue, but like for the most part, people were afraid to push smaller guys, just push them to the moon. We were almost at the next level where the cruiserweight explosion, but it wasn't there yet.
I mean, I'd agree with that if we weren't pushing Brian Christopher, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Brian wasn't a huge guy,
but he was like wide. Like I viewed him as a big, smaller guy. I didn't view him as like just a small guy. You know what I mean? He was still
finally seeing the dog catchers in a match today, and then knowing what we know about the Moondogs. Can you imagine how awful these fucking Moondogs versus dog catcher matches had to be? And we of course, we're not seeing clips of them either, because but yeah, these have rocked on for 2 or 3 weeks now. So that, like I say, that's our best tag team. That's the tag team champs. But anyway, we'll see where it goes from here, because we're going to hear from Richard Lee here in a little bit about what's going on this coming Monday night for the tag team titles. But right now, let's take our first podcast commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to hear from Mr. Vince McMahon.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the Wrestlecopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the Wrestlecopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. But that's not all. You can also check out the Pro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puroresu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the Wrestlecopia Podcast Network, located over at Wrestlecopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it Wrestlecopia.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jarrett, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We appreciate our sponsors for supporting the podcast. And next up, we hear from the King, who says he's happy to see Vince McMahon end up with egg on his face last week, as he put it, since things didn't really go his way. And then we hear from good old Mr. McMahon himself. So let's listen to a little bit from the WWF chairman, what he has to say about what happened last week. And then we'll quickly hear the King's response to that as well.
I can't believe that you people would accuse me of having something to do with the problems Jerry Lawler had last Sunday in his match with the Hitman Bret Hart. I did say that I thought Jerry Lawler was going to be in for a big surprise. But I had no idea just how big that surprise was going to be. I had no idea that a former tag team partner, Giant Gonzalez, would wise up, would smarten up, and recognize Jerry Lawler for what he truly is. Just like maybe some of you Memphians are wising up and taking another look at Jerry Lawler. Sort of the realistic view of Jerry Lawler, the way everyone else outside of Memphis views Jerry Lawler. Well, all I can say, Jerry Lawler, is that just like Jim Neighbors used to say, and maybe it's more appropriate that I can quote Jim Neighbors, and many of you can perhaps understand what I'm saying a little bit more. Surprise, surprise, surprise. No, you don't have a big surprise coming, Jerry Lawler. This Monday night, you and all your fans, you've got a big problem. An 8-foot big problem.
Vince McMahon from the World Wrestling Federation. That's right. Well, let me just say this to Vince McMahon, and especially to all the people here in Memphis. You're right, Vince McMahon. Maybe outside of Memphis, they view me a little differently, especially in that rotten apple of yours up in New York City. Yeah, they view me a little differently. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I hate you, Vince McMahon, and I hate New York City, but I love Memphis, and the people in Memphis know who the king of wrestling really is. Because I have, for about 20 years, kicked butts and taken names in this ring right here in Memphis, Tennessee. And before I'm through, there's going to be a lot of World Wrestling Federation names added to the list, and Monday night I'm going to put one of the biggest names of all on there. Giant Gonzalez is going to go right down on that list. And if you don't like it, Vince McMahon, you can take your Giant and you can take your World Wrestling Federation and you can shove it as far as I'm concerned.
So if you weren't, with everything we've seen from Vince McMahon over the years and the stuff we know about from the last few years, it doesn't really seem like a big deal. But if you're like us and can remember back to 1993, and the only thing you have ever seen is Mr. Announcer Vince McMahon. Most people didn't even know that he was, the head of the company. They just knew him as the lead announcer. I remember watching these promos being like, oh my God, Vince McMahon's an asshole. Like just being blown away by these promos. And you go back and watch them now and you still can appreciate that they're really great heel promos. But at the time, it was just so far removed from the guy that you had seen each week on Superstars or even on like TNT, and all the silly stuff that he did on there. But like I say, most people are going to be watching this. You've seen so much Mr. McMahon since then. You're like, oh, I've seen him do better stuff with Austin. Well, of course you did. But he had years to perfect it. This was like, probably his third heel promo he's ever done in his life. Maybe the second on this one in particular. I don't know, man. It continues to impress me how well he fell into this role. And I liked Lawler's response here. What did you guys think of this segment?
It's almost like it was a natural reaction.
Dude, that's what I was going to say. I hear Buck Owens, all I got to do is act naturally.
It's funny. You're like, this is only his third heel promo. It's like, well, on camera.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there was some, you're going to do it or you're going to lose your job. I'm sure there was some of those in the back, but I couldn't get past that. He looked like the freaking Wizard of Oz behind that curtain there. I mean, that emerald green curtain. I'm going to tell you what you're going to have to do to get home, Dorothy.
Clack those fucking shoes, bitch.
Oh, yeah. You clack them. She's going to clack her heels. She's going to clack them. It's like, look at that.
I'm going to shit on your head. Come here, Johnny.
Hold her.
That's
Johnny.
another thing, too. You watch this and think one day him and one half of the dynamic dudes are going to be tag teams.
Oh, man.
That is
but
wild.
yeah, I mean, it was one of those moments as a kid when you see this and you're like taken back because you're like, he's supposed to be the good guy, and that was one of the things that I struggled with wrestling when I was a kid because everything in Memphis was backwards. It's like, I don't want to root for Jack Gonzalez. Why is he teaming with Jerry Lawler? I was like, obviously, we're on the wrong side here when Mr. Fuji is sending in go get him Jerry Lawler tapes, So, yeah, I mean, even this was just kind of like, I don't know how to feel about it because I like Vince McMahon as a kid, but now he's sending this stuff in.
It was different, but at the same time, like I've said before, it was almost like you viewed Memphis as the home team, and the home team had a problem with those Yankee bastards, and it seemed like I could excuse it because he had most of the bad guys on his side, Lawler being he, because he was a bad guy up there in my mind, and he could convince them to help him. Even though they were bad guys, they were going to help him because they didn't like Vince McMahon and who he had problems with either. So, like, in that Southern aspect of it, and, Lawler really put over in the promos, us here at Memphis, it was really that us versus them type mentality. So I fell right into it. That's how I could excuse it as a kid.
Oh, I did too, because, as a kid, I was able to go to some live Memphis shows and, like I say, continental shows and meet some of these same guys that were on the Memphis shows. So when it came to times like this, it was always like, yeah, screw them guys. These are my guys. These are guys that I actually feel like I somewhat know to some degree because I've met them. I've seen them in person, and this is the home team, like you say, So, oh, yeah, I totally bought into Lawler's, us against them mentality. It's not to say I didn't like and watch the WWF, but if it come down to who I'm rooting for, I'm going for the USWA guy every time, But it just feels different when you go back and watch it now. I kind of like, but my perception of a lot of this stuff is completely different in 2025 than it was in 1993. So, so match number 4, Tony Williams is in the ring. We see the graphic. Here comes Brian Christopher with Miss Simpson and Miss Robin. He has clearly sent Gentleman Chris Adams out of town on the what was it, the
train to nowhere,
or whatever it was, and so he's gone. But before the match can get started, this Phantom of the Opera guy comes out there in his get up, and he gives Tony Adams an envelope. But before she could see what was in it, Brian snatches it away He looks at the contents and says, "Oh, some pervert took naked pictures of you." And apparently, Corey could see over Brian's shoulder. He saw the pictures, but he said he wasn't going to reveal what he saw. But Brian ends up taking the girls and leaving, and he ends up losing to Tony Williams on a countout. So there's your answer. The reason Tony Williams couldn't go out there and make Giant Gonzalez look good is he was actually going to get a win on television today here. In the record books, it's just going to say Tony Williams beat Brian Christopher, and we'll just leave it at that. We won't get into too many details, right? He's going to take his wins until Wicked shows up in a few years. So, oh boy. Next up is this week's That's Fabulous segment as Jeff Jarrett talks to some guys from the Washington Redskins. Now, Josh, wasn't your guess recently that we were going to go with football? It seems like I remember you mentioning that. At some point.
And I don't watch ahead. We've talked about that before.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I think this is what me and Richard were talking about in that text the other night that we were discussing earlier, was this segment here. Because I said, I think Josh guessed it. And he's like, I don't know, but he's not answering right now. He's clearly busy. So Jeff is talking to this Redskins football player, and then we go to video of Jeff catching passes set to the tune of Simply the Best by Tina Turner. So I guess Jeff figures he's completely ended racism now. That theme is over with. So now we're just putting ourselves over at this point. We can just point out that he's the best because we all shall be free, and they're free now. So let's just have some fun and put ourselves over. So we see Jeff catching passes from like 8 feet away. And then we see Jeff throwing the other guy passes. Or actually, we don't see Jeff throwing the passes. We see Jeff throw one of the passes. The rest of the clips is just this guy catching the football. We don't see who's actually throwing them. We have to assume it was the fabulous one. But we don't know that to be true. So, of course, at some point, the guy does tell Jeff. I don't think he said he was fabulous, but they get the line in there. And another sport covered into That's Fabulous segment. Did you guys enjoy this one any more or less than the others, or fast forward?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, man. I minimized the screen and I looked at eBay for a little bit. It was so just we're doing this. The pool. I enjoyed Minnesota Fats better than this segment. It's just so repetitive. Just same shit over and over. It's like, yeah, you want a Super Bowl, man? Show that ring, man. That's great. Well, let's go play a sport that I've never said anything about playing. I was a basketball player, but apparently I was the best fucking football player Middle Tennessee had to offer. Like, what the hell?
I took the theory of, if you have to tell me that this guy's a big deal, he's probably not. Like if I know if he's a big deal, I know him. You know what I mean? But they're like having to show clips of this guy's. I swear to God, he's a football player. Swear to God.
That's him under that helmet and those pads. You can't really tell.
And I love the team that they said he was from is not the team that they showed the footage from. It was from a completely different team, and they had no footage of him playing in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Copyright issues.
Maybe.
That's the fun thing about like football players is like you can show a clip and be like, yeah, that's me. And who the hell's going to call you out on it? I mean, you got the helmet and all this shit on, and the footage is blurry back then. So I mean, it's like, yeah, that's me. I was in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Are you sure it's not your name on the back? I grabbed the wrong jersey, but that's me. Trust me.
I forget what documentary I was watching, but they were interviewing these people, and they were like, strippers said that football players had a face covered like complex. Because it's like they're not like baseball players or basketball players where you see their face. So like when they come in, they want to spend more money and they want to do things because they have their face covered most of the time, unless you're a big star. So I don't know. I guess that makes sense. You could show anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I could just show clips all day long and be like, yeah, that's me. That big white dude right there. Yeah, I was totally in the NFL.
Right tackle. There I am. Tell me it's not.
So, true to form of recent weeks, we come out of that segment straight into a match from the Fabulous One as he takes on Intruder number 1. We saw Intruder number 2. Now we're going to see his counterpart, Intruder number 1. Now, I'm not sure anyone else on Earth would pick up on this, know or care, but I think you guys might can can get this, but it seemed to me that the gear Jeff was wearing depicted his Zombie Sailor retro action figure in this match.
Yes.
Now, that's some heavy duty nerd shit right there, but I thought one or both of you may have picked up on that.
Yes, I noticed it immediately.
I knew you would because I knew you had it.
Yeah, it's right here somewhere. But yeah, like I noticed it immediately. I was like, oh my gosh, he's wearing the same gear. It's like I always just thought when they put gear on some of those wrestling figures, they just randomized it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, apparently they found one that he was actually wearing.
Yeah. So that's about the highlight of this match, to be honest with you. Except for the second week in a row, he ends the match with a regular ass drop kick. Not a missile drop kick from the top rope, not even from the second rope. Just shoots the guy off, drop kicks him, and pins him. So it's beyond speculation now. It's a fact. Somebody pulled him aside and like, hey, man, that DDT is the shit. You've got to finish your matches with something else. And I think he's salty, so now he's using drop kick.
That's what I was saying. He's so butthurt about it. Well, I'll just end it with a fucking drop kick. How about that?
You'll be lucky if I don't go over with a headlock takedown.
Yeah. Shit. Here he comes with the fabulous drop toe hold. The problem is,
big back elbow from Jeff Jarrett in there gets the win.
See, when Jeff hits him with that drop toe hold, he hits his face on the mat so hard it knocks him out.
Ends it with a backdrop.
He's got the best drop toe hold in the business. Nobody else has ever in the history of wrestling won a match with it. Jeff has now won 3 matches in a row with the drop toe hold. So we take a break, and when we return, we hear from the man who will challenge the Fabulous One for the USWA title this Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum. That's right. My podcast tag team partner is coming in. The one and only Tommy Wildfire Rich is coming back into Memphis. And he sent in a video. Apparently he can't be there today. So he sent a video in from allegedly his bathroom. So let's hear a little bit from Tommy in his bathroom, and then let's see what happened from there. Because once Jeff finds out, Tommy's not here, he's talking from his bathroom, well, I'm gonna go out here and talk some real good shit out here in the studio. But he's in for a surprise. Check this out.
Say hello to all the people in USWA Wrestling. It's been a long time since you've seen Tommy Wildfire Rich or Thomas Rich. I've got many names, but I'm here for a special reason today. And I guess you're wondering why I'm in my bathroom. Well, I got something to say to the Jarrett family. You know, Jarrett, when you started, you broke me into the wrestling business. Well, when I got into it, you quit. You had all the pretty young girls. You had it all. But Tommy Rich come along, the blonde, fair-haired child, and I took him away from you. You couldn't stand it, so you quit. Well, Jeff Jarrett, I hope you're more of a man than your daddy was, because I didn't even have to put him out of professional wrestling. I intimidated him out. Well, I'm coming back to USWA, and let me tell you something, Jeff Jarrett. I'm coming for one reason, and that's you. You're going to have to fight your daddy's fight this time. He took up for you many years. Well, now then it's time you stood up for the Jarrett family. I'm in this bathroom for the simple reason I figured, Jeff Jarrett, you could relate to a bathroom. And let me tell you something. When I see you, Jeff Jarrett, this is what I'm going to do to you. I just have Jeff Jarrett. And what I'm going to do to you when I come to USWA is I'm going to right down the toilet, Jeff Jarrett. Don't be scared, because your worst nightmare is coming back to USWA. Be ready, Jeff Jarrett.
All right, behind me, the board says the USWA Heavyweight title match and the USWA Heavyweight Champion, the Fabulous One, Jeff Jarrett. And Jeff, we got Tommy Wildfire Rich coming up this week.
The big Thomas Rich. Tommy Rich, a bunch of names he said. He did an awful lot of talking, and Tommy Rich, I used to know him as one heck of a wrestler. But it seems now all he's good at is running his mouth. He never backs up what he says. He just wants to say how big and bad he is, and he wants to talk about my family. Well, I take high offense to that, Tommy Rich. And I look at this belt, this is my belt now. So you're going to get a good chance to come in and back up your talk, and you're going to get a good chance to come in and challenge for this title. But that's all you're going to be doing, because you think you're so big and bad, and run your mouth. Well, this week it's going to be put up or shut up.
Hey, look out! Here comes Tommy Rich! Rich jumps on Jeff Jarrett! Kill him! First, get him out of here, would you? We're not going to put up with that stuff. Tommy Rich comes out here, jumps on Jeff Jarrett. Jumps on a fabulous one. Tommy Wildfire Rich. Kill him, Tommy, kill him. And Rich jumps on Jeff Jarrett. First, get him out of here, would you? Get him out of here. We don't need any of this stuff. They've got a bout coming out. Somebody teaches this punk a lesson. Well, they've got a bout coming up this week, and he can do what he wants to do. They're going to have a title match. Get him out of here now. We don't need him out here. You hear what the fans are saying? Go, Tommy, go. Even the fans hate Jeff Jarrett.
So there you see him. Tommy Rich shows up looking like he just came from closing a cell on a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house and still whoop that ass, son.
Yeah, we were talking. There was so much to be broken down with that bathroom video. It was like, I told Josh, it was like 5 seconds before this, somebody was like, "Hey, you son of a bitch, I found your camera in the bathroom. I'm going to shoot promo." That's what's in there for. But, you know, it's kind of funny. It was like, and the other thing I said, now this bathroom looks like it's got commercial grade stuff in it, but this is really residential.
Exactly. Coming from my bathroom, like that's probably in the studio. So
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. He was so
back
comfortable.
There's a shower. It may have just been the hotel down the road or something. But
He was comfortable enough throwing an entire unfolded pitcher into the toilet and flushing it. Like that definitely wasn't his home plumbing, because whatever that's going to require some attention in about a week for sure.
Yeah. Jarrett's back there. Damn, that was my personal toilet. Y'all get Roto-Rooter on the call.
call the dirty white boy. I hear he's a plumber in his spare time. OTL Hopper. Oh. I like that Tommy says, Don't be scared. I'm your worst nightmare. I'm like, those two things don't go together, Tommy. You should be scared if you're his worst nightmare. But yeah, Tommy looked like he could whoop his ass and then sell him some term life insurance and get him a good deal.
Time to cash in on that life insurance, pal.
I'm still going. Somebody say something about no closing costs.
Let me tell you about escrow.
Oh God!
Well, Tommy was rocking a sweet mullet at the time there in '93. I noticed.
Man,
but yeah, happy to see old Tommy back.
At this point, what was it? 1990, maybe, since Tommy had been there, maybe earlier, right? Or did he come in '92 at some point?
I think he may have dipped in a couple of times in '92. I mean, I know because like '89 and '90, he spent most of the year in WCW. I want to say 91, 92. I think he kind of came in and out, but not for any real length of time. It had been a while. So you wasn't expecting to see him back. And then when you see him, you know, in a video, you think, well, all right, well, he's not here. So I'm sure it surprised some people for him to show up in the studio, but I don't know. I guess from where they have that screen, the run-in part was really awkward. It was just like, whoa, hey, what?
Well, he had to run Corey down first.
Yeah, he had to come
and
over.
Then he attacked it because
that's better to come from behind Jeff, but I guess from where it's to come out of the heel side, he would have had to come head on.
Right.
So yeah, you got Corey like, oh, what the heck? Bert Prentice touched my mouth. Now Tommy Rich hit me in the back of the head. What the hell?
It was legit. It was a legit surprise to me. I was, whoa, I had to rewind it again. I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. Legit shock.
Yeah, I mean, it worked that way for me too. When I was watching it the first time, I thought, all right, well, he's sending a tape. And then when he comes running out, I was like, oh shit, that was a pretty good swerve. But I'm like, I think he's wearing the same shit he was in the tape. So clearly they did that intentionally, you know. It was like, all right, well, we'll shoot a video and everybody's gonna think you're not here, and then you come running out.
No, it's separated.
And punch him in the ribs repeatedly. That was another part that was kind of odd too. You just kept punching him in the ribs over and over.
Kind of looked like a fun uncle trying to tickle you at Thanksgiving, didn't it?
Come here and give me that goose,
give me them ribs. Come on, get them ribs.
You remember that bathroom promo? I'm gonna make you shit your pants. I'm gonna put you in the stomach till you shit your britches.
It's gonna be your fault for having all them hot dogs, that potato salad.
You better not make no more D's on that pork card now.
I'll
When they
goose
make
you
that
again.
doll, they better put a dark spot in the back of them tights when I get done with you.
Now I saw Jeff like when he was down, one of his straps kept falling down like down to his elbow, and it made me think, how did he get that damn thing on anyways? Because the neck hole was so tight. Like usually, you pull it down or you pull everything up. Like, how did he get that on? Did
More
the
than
neck
likely
have
it was
it hooked some kind of. I don't know if it had
Yeah.
Velcro if it had actual. Because I seen like one time in a match and it was not effective. Because you know how like Lawler could be like. Well, I was at a show in Memphis. I think it was one of his matches with Road Dogg or something. But like in the middle of it, he stops and he gets real mad. He reaches behind his neck and was like, and unhooks it and then straps down. I was like, that was not at all. I don't know what the desired effect was, but that couldn't have been it because this just looked like a lady was about to,
take the bra off.
Exactly. Like,
let me take this
him?
complex negligee off real quick.
I don't know how serious that man is, but I'm a little turned on right now. I don't know about you guys.
If he puts his hair up in a ponytail, this guy's fixing to get blown right here.
He's doing the.
I mean, that's the international sign that business is about to pick up, but not in a fight.
Business will pick up.
Oh man!
By God! He's got his boobs out.
That man's got a family.
I guess
about
he's just.
to add to it.
I guess he's just tired of fighting. If he's going to take another take at it, well, fighting ain't going well. I guess I'll go with love.
Let's approach this differently. But so, after another break, we come back to Corey and Mike Anthony in front of a backdrop that says Love Connect. Well, they're not exactly in front of it. If you're watching the video cast, they start over here and then they work their way here. And eventually they get over here. But yeah, so we've got him standing in front of a backdrop with a rose that says The Love Connection. And he's talking about his issues with Brian Christopher. But of course, he did kiss both of Brian's women last week. So there's that. But I don't know. Mike Anthony, I've been really impressed with him in the ring so far. But as a promo guy, I've been really impressed with him in the ring so far.
He was like a 90s quip machine, wasn't he? The whole time he was out there. I mean, I was expecting him to go, Mike Anthony's too legit to quit, guys.
And then he says at the end, see ya, Brian, wouldn't want to be ya. I'm like, you can't put Brian in the middle of that. The whole point of that is it rhymes. See ya, wouldn't want to be ya. But when he goes, see ya, Brian, wouldn't want to be ya. Like, that just come off lame as fuck. Like, I don't know. Like, man, I kind of liked this guy till he had a promo. Now I'm hoping Brian kicks the shit out of him.
It was kind of heelish, wasn't it? Like, it wasn't a babyface promo. It was, it kind of come across as a little braggadocious. And then that last line, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. Like, I would have wanted him to see it. I would have wanted to see his ass kicked back then more than I do now.
Yeah, he felt like a heel from like an 80s teen movie or something,
Yeah. Like the guy that's like the ski champion of the mountain that you're going to have to beat at the end of the movie to win the girl. Yeah,
exactly. That's who he portrayed here. So I don't know. He's gonna have to get that figured out before this is over with. But we go back and we see the clip of him kissing both of Brian's ladies last week, or I guess it's not his ladies. It's his lady and his lady's maid is the story we're telling here anyway. So then we get a promo from Brian and the two ladies, and Brian starts the promo out by asking Corey if he's ever heard the phrase, jealousy is the root of all evil. And after getting yelled at, Corey finally lies and says he's heard it, but that's bullshit because he's never heard that because the saying is money is the root of all evil. Corey has never heard anybody say jealousy is the root of all evil. That's not even a fucking thing. But Brian intimidated him into agreeing that he'd heard that before. So Brian talks about how Chris Adams was jealous of him because he took his wife, and now Mike Anthony's jealous of him. And then behind them on the green screen, we start seeing pictures pop up of Brian trying to kiss Miss Robin. Then eventually we see one of him kissing Miss Robin. But now Brian's trying to act like, so this is a weird situation because they're trying to act like these things are actually on the screen behind them. But the only people seeing these pictures on the green screen behind them is us at home.
Yeah.
'Cause behind them in the studio, it's just a green screen, and it's actually appearing in front of them on the monitor. So Brian's having to act like he doesn't want Miss Simpson to turn around, but actually it would have been in front of her. So now he's just covering her whole head. It got really awkward of her trying to keep her from seeing these pictures. And apparently, this Phantom of the Opera character earlier that's what was in the envelope, right? It had to be these pictures of Brian kissing Miss Robin. So that's the angle here. It's going to be Brian is messing with the maid behind Miss Simpson's back. So I guess we're working towards maybe a turn for Miss Simpson, perhaps. She's going to end up being babyface. I don't know. It's kind of reminiscent of the old Jimmy Garvin, Sunshine and Precious angle from World Class back in the day a little bit. I don't know. But I don't know. It's kind of an interesting wrinkle to all this, even though she was just introduced into the picture like a week ago. Mm-hmm. We're moving kind of fast in this one, don't you think?
Yeah. And wasn't he just snatching her by the hair a couple weeks ago? Now he's worried about her seeing photos.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have the gumption to put your hands on a woman, you ain't too worried about if she's going to leave you over anything. Like, there's consequences, And it just seems out of character to me. That's like he's worried about her seeing pictures of him kissing another woman.
Yeah, the dynamic of their relationship has been just all over the place in the course of one episode. They came out last week. She hated his guts. He had just dragged her out of the Coliseum by the hair. And he's like, "Here, I got you a maid." She's like, "Oh my God, Brian, I love you." And everything was perfect after that. And then now, a week later, he's trying to hide, like you say. I mean, the guy who was dragging her out head first by the Coliseum would be like, "Yeah, bitch, I'm kissing her. What are you going to do about it?"
Right.
Join in. So it's, the whole presentation of this relationship's really odd. And I guess maybe we're just amending the story as we go along. I don't know. So a friend of the show, I won't say who he is in case he doesn't want his ideas thrown out there. But anyway, a friend of the show that we all know, and not BT, because that's going to be your assumption. It's not BT. Messaged me and thought that we were giving them too much credit by saying that the Mike Anthony, Brian Christopher, Miss Simpson, and Miss Robin storyline was kind of well thought out. And it was a pretty good structured story, and it was laying groundwork for a storyline after the Chris Adams Loser Leave Town match. Even though to me it kind of gave away the Loser Leave Town ending, but he was saying that we were giving them too much credit. There's no way they thought this out that way, that well, that this all must have just kind of been coincidence. I was like, dude, this shit couldn't be coincidence. You had to, to bring the girl out and introduce her into the story, and Brian's reaction to, you had to plan that out. And he's like, okay, yeah, but who would have been the one planning it? Like, who's the one booking this? He's like, I don't think Randy Hales would have come up with it. And I'm like, he about had to have, because none of this stuff, we weren't really even trying to have any kind of structure, any kind of story until he shows up just recently. And now we're at least trying to have some kind of forethought into some of this. So what do you guys think? Do you think this is Randy Hales implementing this? Now, I pointed out to this guy, like Jerry Jarrett appeared out of nowhere last week. Is Jerry Jarrett coming in going, hey, we need to kind of tighten this up a little bit about the stories and stuff around here. Do you have any theory on this, or do you think it's any way possible this is all just dumb luck and they kind of fell into this? I mean, somebody thought this shit out and came up with it. Or do you think this is Brian coming up with his own angle here?
Well, I'm not sure like how much freedom was given to each individual back then. You figure like Lawler and Jarrett would kind of lead their own shit, at least for the most part, and maybe everybody else would just kind of fall in line with whatever, Jerry or Randy thought of that week. But yeah, I think because it was so bad leading up to maybe about a month ago, and then I don't know, I don't think it was a coincidence we start seeing Randy Hales on camera, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of stuff that just starts making sense. I believe it was probably a lot of Randy's idea, because I feel like Jarrett at this point is already in the consulting deal. I'm pretty sure. And then Lawler is up there all the time. So both of those guys are mentally away. And they're just hoping that this thing is kind of on autopilot or whatever. And maybe that's why Randy showed back up, because they need somebody to steer this son of a bitch, whenever it's not about a WWE guy. We got to get somebody steering the other part of the show, because they can't stay engaged. That's almost what it has to be.
I don't know how things have changed between then and then like 15 years later when I was working with the other incarnation of Memphis wrestling. But to me, it felt like when I was there, you had your top guys that they trusted to just kind of come up with their own stuff, and they would hear it and they'd be like, all right, we're going to do that. To me, there was only thought put into like maybe one or two guys, and everybody else just kind of come up with their own stuff, and then they'd let you do it. But then you could tell if they liked it by how well they put it over on commentary. You know what I mean? Like, I know at one point, we were running around in suits and ties, and Mr. Hughes was on the show like, 2 segments later, and he was not happy about us wearing suits and ties and wrestling. But yeah, I honestly think this is just something Brian came up with. And, because you can't tell me that there was a long-term thought that when he was getting presented Miss Simpson by Scotty Flamingo, that they were thinking, okay, then we can work into in a couple more weeks he'll be fighting Chris Adams, and then what we can do is when Chris Adams is gone, it's like, to me, I honestly, if they were going to put thought into it, it was going to be one of their bigger guys. But I think this is more of a 2-week plan, as they're going.
I mean, no, I don't think nothing was planned back that far to when she first came in, but I just think that this storyline, things that I know for a fact that Randy Hales had his hand in down the line, this is of a similar vein to that. But then again, I could also see Brian just bringing this other chick along and be like, hey, we're going to do this. But either way, there's a little bit of, my point being, there's a little bit of thought put into this. This shit didn't just unfold during the course of a promo. Like, somebody had an idea that like, hey, this is who you're going to be wrestling after Chris Adams leaves. But that stands out because in the past that we've never seen nothing on this week's show led to a week or two down the line. Everything was like, today affects Monday, and then we'll deal with next Monday, next Saturday. Like, you never really saw something this Saturday set up for something who could potentially still be going the following Saturday. But anyway, I just want to throw that out there. So then we hear where USWA is headed, and that brings out our friend Richard Lee. And long story short, brother, Richard Lee's hair is on the line this week against the tag team titles of the Moondogs. It's like there's only like 2 or 3 stipulations that they know to do with these guys, and they just keep cycling through them. And it's funny because Richard Lee I don't think this was his intention, but he kind of pointed out the recycled nature of this in this promo, because he's like, I did this against Lawler and Jarrett. I did this against Mike Samples, and I got my head shaved both times. Like, yeah, good point. Both of these things have happened within the last, one happened a year ago, one happened 2 years ago. So every year around this time, they do this stipulation. So,
about time to see one of them Moondogs bald, huh?
Yeah. So, I didn't get a clip of that. I hope nobody's disappointed.
Oh, thank God.
You've heard a Richard Lee promo before. If not, maybe he'll call in and do another one for us correctly. So let's take our second and final podcast commercial break of the day, and then we're going to take a look at the card for Monday night, and then we'll talk about how it all played out.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the Wrestlecopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the Wrestlecopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/wrestlepod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
All right, now let's let Corey tell us about the card for this Monday night.
7:30 bell time. Let's go over the entire card and tell you what we got coming up down there. Now, the box office will be open. The box office will be open Monday at 1 o'clock. You want to get your tickets early with that big special that Eddie Marlin has added, with all students admitted for only $3. That's all students. You go to school. School is back in, and if you attend school, you get in for only $3 down there Monday night. Opening bout, you see Colin Scott against Reggie B. Fine. That's your opening bout coming up Monday night at the Coliseum. Big Colin Scott's in the opener. Then Missouri Tiger, Jeff Gaylord to be in against the legend, Tony Falk. You'll see Missouri Tiger and the legend. Then a six-person mixed tag match. This should be an interesting one when the hip-hop team, PG-13, will team up with the Black Pussycat, and they'll face the American Eagle, Miss Texas, and Randy Rocket. That's all coming up in that six-person mixed tag match. Then USWA tag title match. You got the dog catchers, and Bert Prentice says that his new business associate is Paul Neighbors. Neighbors was out here earlier. He was fired by promoter Eddie Marlin as referee, and says that he has given Prentice a down payment to be in his stable over there. Now, I don't know how much the down payment is, and I tried to find out what the balance was, and Neighbors doesn't seem to know himself. But his dog catchers will be in there, and Paul Neighbors in their corner against Richard Lee's Moondogs, Miss Robin and Tony Adams. They'll both be in his corner, and he'll be going against Mike Anthony. You got USWA heavyweight title match. After what Tommy Rich pulled out here today, Jeff Jarrett was going to defend the belt. He's going to agree to a title match with Tommy Rich, and Tommy Rich comes out while Jeff's doing his interview and jumps on the fabulous one, a gigantic grudge. Giant Gonzalez. He stands in at 8 feet tall. He'll be led to the ring by Bert Prentice, but he's got a gigantic king, Jerry Lawler, and the king will be looking for Giant Gonzalez. It's Labor Day night.
Sons.
Well, we got a glimpse of the Black Pussy.
We got a gigantic king, Corey said. I like at the beginning where you get $3 off if you're a student that goes to school. I mean,
oof. I told Josh I was going to finish out this show as Giant Gonzalez.
Whew, good luck with that. That's
big eyes and looking like he's got surprised on it.
It's hard to keep your eyes open that wide for that long. But
like somebody opened up the bathroom stall on you. Like...
They're so dry.
See how long he can keep this up here.
That's ridiculous.
Surprise, motherfucker.
That's what looks like just happened to him there. All right, so let me ask you guys the all important questions that we ask every week. What was your least favorite part of today's show?
Moondogs. Anything involving the Moondogs. I asked Josh during the commercial break. Richard Lee, and it counts.
Oh, that's right. They had that old.
Yeah, I mean, I asked Josh just a few minutes ago. We were talking about the Moondogs match. Like, what's your favorite Moondogs match? And he struggled. he should come up with something, but he struggled.
At one where they was hitting people with chairs.
It's just, if you've seen it once, you've seen it all the time. It's just like, all right, I'm done. And I wasn't a big Moondog fan growing up. I know that's sacrilege in the South, but I can't stand it. Like, it's just terrible to me. Like I've seen the gimmick to where, you know, somebody's crazy and they can't be controlled too, but you know, at least they were decent workers. I know that sounds bad, but it's just this character is just terrible. I hate it. I hate the Moondogs.
Yeah,
I think we've gone to the well too much. Like, we needed a bigger break from them. They brought them back too soon, is my opinion. I think there's a place and time. There's a time and place for them, but we saw them the entire first, 6-7 months, and then they went away for just a few weeks, and now we're right back. Especially bringing back babyface Moondogs, and I'm not a fan of that, especially, and then not having Spot. This is the most watered down version of the Moondogs you could possibly get, and then with they're wrestling guys like the dog catchers, there's not a lot to like.
Yeah, that is my least favorite part of this show is just the dog catchers. I'm sick of it. I'm as sick of the dog catchers as Richard Lee is of the Moondogs. I don't like the interchangeable aspect of it. It's whoever is here, we'll just throw them, some mask on them, throw some ref uniforms on them if we have to cover up tattoos. Probably it's whoever is here this week is the tag team champions. That's disrespectful to the belts. That's disrespectful to your promotion. If you're trying to be big time and big dogs and having all these WWF guys on the cards and trying to present this larger than life product, now it seems like that they're trying to really draw the people back in, but then you got neutered Moondogs fighting just Chris Frazier and fucking whoever the fuck under a mask as the tag team champions. It's just, I'm so sick of it.
I wish somebody would reveal to us that one of them was Jerry Turman. At least there'd be some redeeming quality to the dog catchers if he was getting a little bit of a push here. But all right, so perhaps an easier question, maybe it's a harder question. I don't know. We'll see. What was your favorite part of this week's show?
I like the Tommy Rich stuff. I liked him and Jeff Jarrett. I'm excited to see this feud. This is two guys I care about. The whole bathroom angle, it made me laugh when I saw him in a bathroom, and then the surprise of the attack. I was really into this, and I was ready to. I wanted to see it. It got me excited for Monday night. To see this match. So yeah, I would say the whole Tommy and Jeff Jarrett start of that angle was probably my favorite part.
Yeah, I got to echo you, Richard Lee. Like that, I alluded to it just a little bit before, but yeah, legitimate shock. Like I rewound it and I was like, holy shit. Like I did not expect that at all. When you said before, Gene, whenever you send in an interview, you expect that guy, we'll see him Monday night and then he'll be here at the studio on Saturday to talk about the results of Monday night. But no, Fez press, boom, right there during he almost took Corey out as well. Like it was really, really surprising. And we need more moments like this on Saturday morning.
Well, kind of disappointed nobody's favorite moment involved Giant Gonzalez, but I get it.
He's my favorite wrestler.
I'm still shocked that you said I was more of an Elegante fan. Oh man, I've never heard anybody utter those words. I was an Elegante fan myself, but if this was 1993, would you guys be buying a ticket to this Monday night's card?
I would, just for the last three matches, because other than that, like I said, I'd show up late, but I would go, but I'd show up late because the Colin Scott's match does nothing for me. I'm sorry, Josh, but the American Eagle match really doesn't, because like we were sitting there picking out who we think was going to win, and I think it's not really a toss up until you get to the last couple. So yeah, I mean, I would have bought a ticket to see at least the last three matches on this card. So I'm showing up late, but I'm there.
Yeah, I would go, but I'm not as excited, as it would be like if Brett and Owen were back on the card, or a lot of them. But I've never seen Giant Gonzalez in person, so I would definitely want to go see him versus the King. I mean, you never know what could happen. And I love Tommy Rich. Him versus Jeff Jarrett, that'd be a good match. And obviously something big is going to happen. So, yeah, I would go just for those couple of matches.
Well, let's see who else agrees with you guys. Monday night, September 6th, 1993 at the Mid-South Coliseum. 1,200 people showed up to see this show. It's down from previous weeks, but considering the card, I think that's, pretty good. Yeah, it's funny how many people on the card were not at all featured on TV. You look at the opening match, Colin Scott beat Reggie B. Fine. So Colin Scott's finally getting a victory. He's been losing to Tony, like the only guy losing to Tony Falk in the last 15 years in Memphis has been this guy. But he gets the win over Reggie B. Second match, we saw Jeff Gaylord beat the legend Tony Falk. Again, two guys weren't on TV. Third match, American Eagle number 1, who they designate was Ken Wayne, standing in for Danny Davis, who's not here. Jeff Gaylord and Miss Texas defeated PG-13 and the Black Pussycat.
Now, to be fair, they announced Randy Rocket and American Eagle on the cards.
Right.
But so Randy Rocket pulled a Danny.
That's right. When you said earlier I wasn't excited about the American Eagles, I was thinking it was both American Eagles. But no, it was supposed to be Randy Rocket. So.
Yeah, so it's like maybe they just don't. Maybe you think they knew something. It's like we're trying to cancel. His partners were canceling him. I ain't gonna team with that guy anymore.
Man, we keep stopping by them playgrounds and shit.
Fourth match. Fourth match. The Moondogs, Spike and Cujo defeat the Dog Catchers to regain the USWA Tag Team titles, saving Richard Lee's hair.
Oh, thank God.
As I brush my bald head, thank goodness for Richard Lee saving his hair. In the next match, now I only know this because I pulled some stuff from the Observer that we'll talk about a little bit after we get to talk about this card. But in the next match, Brian Christopher comes out and pulls the exact same stunt that Jerry Lawler pulled the week before at SummerSlam, where he comes out and he's on crutches and he can't wrestle. And so someone's going to take his place. So the official result says Mike Anthony beat Billy ? So some guy named Billy, who we don't know who it is, Mike Anthony beat them, and then immediately following, freaking Brian attacks Mike Anthony and beats him down after the match. So we put that match off a week. So I guess we'll see that next week. So one of the three matches you guys are coming to see doesn't take place. We see Mike Anthony beat a mystery person and then get beat down by Brian Christopher. In the sixth match, USWA champion, the Fabulous One, Jeff Jarrett, wrestles Tommy Wildfire Rich to a no contest. Whatever that means. Probably a double count out, double DQ. I don't know, but no result for that one. Then in the main event, Jerry the King Lawler beat Giant Gonzalez by disqualification. So there you go. 3 matches you guys were looking forward to, 3 non-finishes.
And one was a bait and switch.
And one was a bait and switch on top of a non-finish. So yeah.
I bet they said that in the back. How about we give them 2 DQs and a bait and switch? What do you say?
Like, we ain't done that in a while. They got a couple of pins in recent matches with Bret Hart. We can pull that off. So looking at the Observer, they say Vince McMahon didn't work this week as we had predicted, but it certainly appears they are still building towards eventually having a Jerry Lawler versus Vince McMahon match at the Mid-South Coliseum. It says Saturday they spent hyping Lawler versus Giant Gonzalez, which took place on September the 4th. Crowd was way down compared to the matches of the shows of the previous month, which ended when Lawler finally pulled down his strap and was making his comeback, and the Dog Catchers hit the ring for the disqualification.
Oh, fuck.
It says with Gonzalez in town for a few weeks, even working the spot shows, that he is going to be working every show that USWA runs right now. Bill Alfonso, his translator and caretaker, will be in town refereeing all of his matches. They follow this up with from the next week. Giant Gonzalez, who was scheduled to be in the USWA for at least a month, gave his notice on his second day in, and his last night will be September the 10th. His appearances didn't increase the town in any of the cities, even the smallest towns where you think the appeal of seeing a giant would mean something. It did not. In fact, after spending a week and a half in the USWA, Gonzalez is said to be ready to leave the wrestling business altogether and move back to Argentina. Although the World Wrestling Federation is currently trying to talk him into at least coming back and working for them.
You know what? I had it better in Argentina than Memphis.
Wow. That may be the most damning thing we've heard about the USWA yet. Not only did he want to quit the USWA, he wanted to quit the WWF, he wanted to quit the business and quit the United States and go back to Argentina.
You have, it said the second day.
Second day.
It's like the first 48 hours. He was like, this is bullshit.
Which means he would have did Memphis TV, go to Nashville that night, and by Sunday, before he even shows at the Coliseum on Monday, been like, fuck this. This is bullshit, you know? Wow. Now, this next thing I'm going to read makes me question anything that I read in the Wrestling Observer, which means what we just talked about may be complete bullshit. Although I tend to believe that, but then I put this in simply for context to let you know that, hey, maybe that's completely made up. Because this next thing that's reported, I'm assuming this is a case of either somebody got the name wrong or somebody read the actual name and then made their own assumptions. But it said, coming into the USWA area soon will be the Spellbinder, who is played by Dale Wilkes, formerly the Patriot. He's going to be doing a magician gimmick. He did the gimmick a few months back during a dark match at Raw, so this is obviously getting him ready to go to the WWF, where he'll be working as a babyface magician. Now, obviously, they confused Del Rios with Del Wilkes, but that's a pretty big difference. Del Rios is just starting out in the business. Spellbinder had not actually even been seen on TV yet on Memphis, and he'd only been seen in a dark match on the WWF. Del Wilkes had been in the business for like 6 years at this point.
Yeah.
And the Patriot was working shows in Japan by now. And we're thinking that he's going to drop his Japan deal, that he quit the Global Wrestling Federation, where they were pushing him as the top babyface, as their heavyweight champion. He dropped the belt and quit the company because Japan offered him more money. And these guys who were supposed to know something about the business thought, yeah, he's going to quit Japan, drop his popular Patriot gimmick, and decide to be a magician in Memphis. What the fuck? I mean, think about it, guys. I mean, so take everything we read from the Observer with a grain of salt after hearing that. So there you go. So yeah, that's this week's show. Paul Neighbors is now the assistant to Bert Prentice, and that should make for some interesting TV moving forward. And the Brian and Mike Anthony storyline is now heated up after Brian pulls this stunt on Monday. And, you know, we would probably be stuck with some more rematches based on that finish with Lawler and Giant Gonzalez. But Giant Gonzalez, at the very least, is leaving Memphis. He may be leaving the country. So he's not going to be back for more matches with Jerry Lawler, which we can all breathe this deep sigh of relief from that.
When you said Paul Neighbors is Bert's assistant, I've got that scene from Pulp Fiction in my head. Come on down here, Bert. I got 2 flies in the ointment. Well, wake up the gimp.
He's still sore. Give him a break.
Which would be a better gimmick than the dog catchers if they were the Gimps. And every match started with Bert Prentice going, "Bring out the Gimps."
Instead of dog catchers, he leads them out on dog leashes.
He rolls them out there in a big box and opens the box and pulls them out of the box.
Wearing demolition outfits, because that's basically what Demolition was wearing, was the Gimp outfit from Pulp Fiction. the Road Warrior movie or whatever. But well, all right, folks, make sure you check out our friend Brian Trammell's podcast over at stspod.club. While you're at it, make sure you check out P3 Radio for more from Richard and Josh. And if you've been enjoying these messages we've been getting from people, if you'd like to leave a message of your own, if you want to call and do a voice, portray a wrestler, if you just want to call and give your opinion about the show, about our show, about the USWA show, if you want to give your theories, whatever you got, you can dial 256 Egg Iron. Now, we got to give Richard credit. He is the one who looked at the number, and he's like, guys, there's got to be words that we can make, because none of us could remember the number.
Yeah.
We're all messaging each other going, hey, what's that number again? What's that number again? And I'm having to go and look it up every time. He's like, there's got to be words. And so in the text in the group chat, Richard pointed out, hey, actually it's 256 Egg Iron. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. But I've remembered it ever since. As absurd as it may be, I have not forgot 256 Egg Iron. So feel free to text that number, call that number, whatever you want to do with it. Put it on the bathroom wall somewhere. I don't care. We'll probably play the shit on the show because we've got that kind of time. Make sure you check out Wrestlecopia.com for all the great shows and content that our friend Ray Russell offers over there, including this show, Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich, his Wrestling Memory Grenade, the Wrestling... God damn it. Now I've blanked out on the name of the show. I'm on the damn thing. We reviewed 1985 Memphis regional wrestling. That's why I said it in the wrong order. But check those shows out. He's got a new show over there right now on regional wrestling where him and Steve Crawford are going through the Jarrett Gula split from back in 1979. That's been very interesting. A new episode of that dropped this past week. I checked out. It was a lot of fun. They've got shows on there about St. Louis, California, all kinds of good stuff. Also, you can go and purchase merch, tinyurl.com/USWA podcast. You can get t-shirts with the logos that you see behind me of the USWA podcast, the Dangerous Doug Gilbert podcast. We've got other things. We got stickers and hats and anything you can think of with this logo and a few others on it. It's there. There's even one with the Moondogs. If you don't dislike them as much as Richard contends to, you may want a shirt with them on there, but we certainly won't be selling one to Richard anytime soon. Follow us on all the different things. So you can see it on the screen if you're watching the show, but we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, since it only was gone for like 24 hours or whatever a few weeks ago during that big scare, that dark time in America when we thought that was going away. And if you don't want to call that number, if you don't want to call 256 Egg Iron, but you want to share something with us, you can email us at uswapodcast@outlook.com. Guys, did I cover all the bases? Did I forget anything? Is there anything you guys want to add before we sign off for this week?
I think we're good, Gene.
Well, all right. We want to thank Slammer and or Jammer for calling in this week. Make sure you go check out their website, www.bruteforce, that's FORCZ.com, for all of their wonderful music, including their hit song, Teenage Lover. You got to hear it to believe it. Some of those lyrics are something else. They'll make you have this look on your face when you get done if you're watching the video.
Are you serious?
Mate, please. All right, folks, that's it for this week. Make sure you join us next week for another episode of the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast.